Welcome to Charter Conversations. Charter Conversations is a format for us to talk with leaders around the country in education who are innovating and thriving despite the mood of the times. Today's conversation is with Paul Morrissey, CEO and founder of Compass Rose Academy, located in San Antonio. Paul's an innovator, an educator, and a social entrepreneur, and I'm so excited to chat with him today. Hi, Paul. How are you?
Hey, Drew. I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
I was thinking about this because we had been chatting in the past, but have you read Ashley Vance's biography on Elon Musk at all? Have you read that?
I haven't.
When I was reading the book and I was thinking about your model at Compass Rose, I was thinking about innovation, and I was thinking Compass Rose really is innovating how it's approaching community and how it's developing its model. Do you see yourself as an innovator?
That's an interesting question. I'm struck by the comparison. I want to hear where this goes. But I mean, yeah, I think the idea of innovation, certainly when you found something like a new school, like a company, innovation is at the front of your mind. We want to do something different. I see innovation as building off of what's come before. So I don't think that we do anything at Compass Rose that is entirely unique to us. We stand on the shoulders of giants of schools that have come before us and paved the way and done a really great job for the students that we serve. We think our innovation occurs sort of at the margins. We can innovate on certain aspects of a proven model and get our students to where we want them to be.
You mentioned that you're building upon what's come from the past. I think that what are those? What are those building blocks?
Yeah, I mean there are a lot of them, but I think the first building block and the most important building block to building a school like Compass Rose is to be a mission-driven organization. So the first thing that we did and that I did when I was writing the plan for Compass Rose was I needed to find what our direction was, and in fact that actually played into the name itself. The compass rose points you in the direction that you're headed. So we really take being a mission-driven organization seriously. That's the first building block. On top of that mission is your vision for what education looks like for each and every student in your school. So that comes down to having a really strong plan for academics, have an operational plan, having a great culture plan. All of those blocks are built on the foundation of a very strong mission.
Paul, one of the foundations of your model is to customize your academic curriculum uh, on a place-based structure. So you're putting different models in different communities. Could you elaborate on that a little bit?
Yeah, we call it place-based innovation. So one of the key components of our founding plan is to, and our launching plan is to get into each community that we're going to build a school in and to talk to the folks in that community, talk to our parents, talk to stakeholders in that community to really learn what they want from a school and what they want from their graduates. So at our flagship campus, what we heard over and over again was this story of entrepreneurship, this idea that families in this community really wanted their children to leave high school with the skills necessary to be their own boss someday, to not have to answer to people, and to run a business. So we took that information and we built a program that leads to entrepreneurship in high school. So it's built on a foundation of technical skills in computer science and coding, in engineering and robotics that ultimately leads to a high school program where students design their own small business and then grow that small business over 4 years with us. And the way we came to that really was through talking to our community, taking what they said they want from their children and really trying to figure out how we could meet that vision for children in that community through our programming. With that in mind, as we're launching our second campus on the southwest side of town, it's a completely different community with completely different hopes and dreams for their kids. They still have very high hopes. They still have very big dreams for their children. They're just different, and they're shaped by the community itself and the community's strengths. So on that side of town, there is we're on a part of town called Port San Antonio. And Port San Antonio has an active airstrip. Boeing is there, Lockheed Martin is there, the US military is there. And when we were talking to our community, we kept hearing again and again the words aviation, the words aeronautics, the words cybersecurity. And we said, okay, this is it. This is what we have to build. So similar to our flagship campus where we built an entrepreneurship program, at Port San Antonio, we're building an aeronautical STEM program that fits the vision that these families, that these community stakeholders have for their graduates. That way, we can say our school really is built from the community itself and not plopped down into the community and just existing within that community.
How do you describe your program to parents?
So there are a couple of different ways that we describe the program. First of all, the flashy pieces of it, the specialty program, we go into depth in that. So we talk a lot about what entrepreneurship means at our flagship campus. We talk a lot about what aeronautical STEM means at our Port San Antonio campus. But when we talk about our core program, what parents want to know is that their children will be attending a school that raises the bar for them. So we go into that. We talk about what it means to be truly world-class in academics, and that a world-class institution uses state assessments like we have in Texas here, the STAR assessment, as the floor for progress and not necessarily the ceiling. But as we grow, we're trying to build a program that is going to be truly world-class, that's going to open up every possible door for our students when they reach college. Because ultimately what we want is not only for all of our students to attend college after graduating from Compass Rose, but we want them to compete for seats in the most prestigious classes, the most challenging classes that they can get into at the colleges that are right for them. And what that takes is really good preparation in their K through 12 years to get there.
Was the vision for Compass Rose informed by your past education in any way?
So my experience, I grew up outside of Boston. I played a few sports, but I was a hockey player. That was my specialty. And for those viewers who are from the Boston or New England area, at this time at least, and I don't know what it's like now, but when I was coming up, the best high school hockey was played at independent schools, at private schools. So when I was finishing my middle school year at my local town middle school, I knew that in order to take that next step in my hockey career, which I had spent a lot of time working on and was really invested in, I needed to apply to these independent schools. I didn't know anything really about school choice other than that's where the best hockey was played. My family wasn't a family that could have paid for independent school had I not been a good hockey player, but we were lucky that I was lucky that I was accepted to a few different schools and had my choice of places to go. And I chose a school that at the time, I'll say this name because I adore it. The school was called Governor Dummer Academy, which was, I think, a hilarious
Dummer
name
Academy.
for a school. Governor Dummer Academy. It was his name. They've since changed it to the Governor's Academy. It's a great school. I was very lucky to have gone there. I think my path to education started really the first week I was at GDA. And that I remember really clearly one class in particular that sort of was the catalyst to what has become my life's work. That was a music class, in which is kind of strange to think about. But and we went into this class in this big auditorium, what felt like a big auditorium. And I remember being in a class of 15, 20, 25, however many students. And the teacher walks in and announces immediately, I want to hear you sing. And I thought, well, okay, what's happening here? The only time I had ever sang was like in the car with my two little brothers, and they were throwing, balled up sandwich bags at me, things like that.
Being a tough hockey guy, was it hard?
I wouldn't call myself a tough hockey player. I was definitely nervous. She, instead of even asking us to do it as a group, I thought maybe we'd sing as a chorus or something like that. She picked us one by one and brought us up onto the stage and had us sing a solo. First day, first week with these people who I didn't know from Adam. It was high intensity to say the least. So I remember just sort of waiting for my turn and feeling more and more anxious about it. And then my turn came, of course, and I got up there and I can't remember exactly, but I imagine I closed my eyes, sang, and made it through, and went and sat back down. And like, I can remember feeling like all the eyes were in the room were on me. I felt like I was melting into my seat. It just was like a teenager's worst nightmare come to life. The teacher, Miss McKean, I'll never forget this. She said, "Paul, come and see me after class." And I said, "What? Why?" She said, "That was great. I need to talk to you about being in chorus. You need to be an event. You need to do all of these things." And that moment right there was the moment, I think, that set me on this path. Because what I did, I saw Miss McKean after class. I joined chorus while I was playing football, while I was playing hockey, while I was playing baseball. That spun off into, I acted on stage, I sang in front of, hundreds of people, things that I never would have experienced had Miss McKean not looked at me that day and seen something in me and challenged me to see it in myself.
It felt like, as you're telling me the story, it just feels like there's this sense of, a whole person, blossoming through high school, and ability. And so does that, and is that really what's informing that personalization part of your curriculum today? Is that sense of building a whole person?
That's absolutely right. So what I took from that, and what I've been very clear with my team, we need to be aware of all the time at Compass Rose, is that school and teachers are meant to dig deep inside of children and pull out what children don't see in themselves, right? Like, that is a teacher's job. A teacher's job is to see the talent that lies inside of a child and to help that child bring that talent out into the world. And I wouldn't have done it in that way with music. I would have been too shy to do it. It would, like you said, it would have felt like not the right thing for, the tough hockey player to do. But Miss McKean saw it, and Miss McKean wouldn't let me off the hook. And that opened up this really personal journey for me that I want every one of our children to take. So, that, again, getting back to the name of the Compass Rose name, like, we want our school to pull that excellence out of every child so that they can find their own path, and live a full personalized life.
But it must also inform how you choose teachers. Because if it wasn't for your teacher and someone who had that experience and that knowledge to be able to pull something out of a kid, you must now want to hire teachers is that something that you look for? Or what do you look for?
Yeah, absolutely. The first thing that we care about is culture fit. Like, are you mission driven like we are? Do you believe in the same things that we do? Do you believe that we must protect every child in the seat, that every child matters, that we need to know every child personally? All of those things are our first look fors when we're hiring staff members. If there are any questions about your motivation, what you believe students can achieve, how you want to work on a team, then you're not the right fit for us. You're probably a great person, but not the right fit for Compass Rose.
What are ways in which you try to engage parents in the community?
There are a lot of different ways, but one that jumps to mind is actually a way that we engage our parents before the school even opens and before teachers are on board. So parents are invested and involved in the hiring process at Compass Rose. And it's part of a bigger process, of course, that we go through with our teachers, or our prospective teachers. But parents' input is really important in that process. So we invite teachers to campus when they're applying for a role in order to give a demo lesson. That's pretty typical in the charter school space and in many schools across the country. But the way that we go a step further and the way that we invest parents is we also invite parents to those demo days. So the candidate goes, into a classroom, teaches a group of students. There are leaders from the school, and in fact, there are other teachers from the school in the room when the candidate is is giving a demo lesson. But then after the lesson, the candidate has a series of interviews. Of course, they're interviewing with the person who will be their manager. They're interviewing with the school leader. But then another interview is a panel with some parents. And we tell our parents, we want you to be involved in this process. We want you to ask the questions that you think are important to ask of these folks who are going to be with your child every day for the next 180 days. And what we find is that parents are really astute. They're really great at asking those challenging questions that surface the mindsets that we want to see from our candidates, or surface issues that we think, hey, this might not be a great match for our kids in this particular context. So it's a really valuable part of our program, among many different pieces of trying to invest parents in what we do.
San Antonio is a pretty competitive market for school choice. In your markets, when you're starting to formulate the school, are the parents, do they understand the full message of Compass Rose? Is that, are you able to communicate that message? Or do they have to be in the school and understand it to get it?
San Antonio is a really great place for school choice. And it's, for me, really rewarding to work here. I've always wanted to work in a place with a lot of really great people who are doing really great work for kids who really need it. And that is San Antonio to a T, across, again, all governance structures. It feels like we're all pointed in the right direction and working together to improve outcomes for kids. So that is extremely rewarding. As a young school, and I call us a toddler school. I have a son. My son Harlan he just turned 3 on Monday, actually. And so he is only a few months older than Compass Rose. So I can actually watch our school grow in human form by watching my son grow. And my son is very much a toddler. Our school is still a toddler school. Up till now, I think we've had we've tried to define ourselves clearly, but have also been, again, trying to find our own way in the world at the same time. So, we've missed opportunities to message clearly who we are. But as we take a step into, our 4th year of operation, as we expand into multiple campuses, we're expanding grade levels. We now are a lot clearer on that vision that I set out before, and not just clearer, we're able to articulate it in a way that gets to the heart of who we are for a parent's child, who we are for the community, in a way that we never were able to do before.
What were you feeling on opening day of your first school?
I mean, it was terrifying. I remember.
Do you remember at this point?
Yeah, I do.
Terrified.
I'll never forget. I was terrified. I do very clearly remember lying in bed the night before day 1 of school. And this was, it was the culmination of a few years of effort. So writing the charter, building the board, building, the operational plan, executing on that plan, getting a facility under lease, all of that stuff had already happened, right? We had done a ton of work to that point. And I just remember lying in bed and absolutely freaking out at the idea, or at the question, will anyone show up? It's not like our kid's going to show up tomorrow. I have no idea. And I turned to my wife and I was like, we can still run. We can still go. We can leave if you want to. And she's wonderful, and turned to me and said, you've done all the work. They're going to show up. You're going to be okay. And we opened the doors on day 1, and we had kids there, and still have a large number of those founding students with us today. So I'd say it was absolutely terrifying to be in that position, but also incredibly rewarding. And as a founder, I think of myself as a builder. I know that about myself. I want to be able to point to something and say that exists because I did the work to make it exist. And the more milestones we reach as a school, the more rewarding it is for me to look at this organization and say, I put in a lot of work, a lot of sweat equity, whatever you want to call it. And here we are, and our kids are getting a great opportunity. At the same time, what I'm proudest of is that vision, not that I have created this great school, but that the work opened the doors for others to come in and support that vision. And so what I say again and again, and it is it's so true. The best parts of Compass Rose aren't pieces that I wrote in a charter application 4 or 5 years ago. Most of that stuff is almost useless at this point. The best parts of Compass Rose are the people who have come in and sort of worked with me to build a vision, and the pieces that they've brought to the organization. So it's been a really special experience.
So this coming August, you have 2 new buildings, right, that you're going to occupy. I know you talked about
Correct.
a little bit before about how you were placing your education, but is that true? You have 2 buildings opening up
Correct.
in August? And are you still nervous?
Yeah, that's true.
Are you gonna not sleep the night before?
Yeah, I mean, that would be
and this happened.
Yeah, I'm still very nervous. I mean, doing having 2 big construction projects going at the same time is nerve wracking. But again, it's rewarding as well when I think about adding so much quality education space for our kids. Like that is it's really exciting to think about. So yep, the projects are due to be completed this summer. That we don't see any reason why they won't be, despite the challenges that coronavirus COVID-19 have sort of thrown in our way. It looks like all systems go and full steam ahead.
At this stage in your career in education, do you see the school choice movement as a revolution or an evolution?
That's a great question. I think of it as an evolution, and I've been chewing on this question a little bit since you asked about the innovation aspect of Compass Rose as well. But I think that evolution can lead to revolution, right? If done the right way, if executed appropriately. So I think there are lots of people doing really exciting work and that are at the tip of the spear as far as the revolutionary aspects of education are concerned. People who are trying to change education and sort of pull us into a new world for children. And a lot of the barrier to entry on that, I think, has been broken down by the fact that we're all forced to go into distance learning very quickly due to stay-at-home orders, et cetera. So there are a lot of people doing really great work to make sure that the infrastructure is in place so that schools can evolve and that we can think of schooling differently. On the ground, the way I think of schooling is that every student that comes to me has one shot at K through 12. They don't get another opportunity to go back and do it. So it is incumbent upon us as a school to make sure that we are providing them with absolutely the best opportunities we can provide them right now to get ahead. And that's especially true for our students who we serve at Compass Rose. We are a school that serves 90% economically disadvantaged students, so students that really need to get ahead. And so we take that very seriously. And we find that at our end, we're thinking of it as an evolution, and we're trying to see what works and as I said, to innovate at the margins so that we're getting slightly better and improving as we go, but improving on building on solid ground. What I'm really excited about in the market and in the landscape are folks who are sort of out there leading the charge at the tip of the spear, doing really revolutionary things that can shift us to a whole new world of education.
Can you give me an example of other charter schools that you're aware of that are innovating around the country?
Yeah, I would love to. So the Cube in Denver, Colorado, Washington Leadership Academy, and Digital Pioneers, both in Washington, D.C., and CompSci High in New York City. And then an older, more established version of this is Republic Schools, of course, in Nashville. All of those schools are doing really innovative things for kids that I'm excited to see grow.
Paul, do you have any advice for the people out there who may be trying to start a charter school?
I do. And I've actually thought about this quite a bit since founding Compass Rose. When you do some, or at least when I do something, I think about how I did it. I sort of play it back in my head. It might be the old athlete in me playing the replays over again and saying, how could I have done this differently? I would say that the best advice I have is to think really critically about who you bring onto your team and when. And I have a really specific example of that I would recommend prospective founders think deeply about. Most founders of charter schools are like me. They come out of the classroom. So we're mostly teachers. And when you're a teacher, you feel like you are most comfortable in the education, academics, curriculum, instruction space, right? It's just natural. So that's the part that you want to take on and you want to lead from the very beginning. You also probably, if you're thinking about starting a charter school, you think you have an idea that is a lot better than other things in the market, other ideas that people might have. That might be true, but what I would say you should consider is that when you're getting into the education space, education has a lot of great educators. There are a lot of great teachers. There are a lot of people who you can go to, you can talk to, and you can explain your vision and get them to understand what you want to do, and they can execute on it. And I think what I would say most founders want to do is they ultimately want to lead, or they want to start off by leading the academic instruction side and hiring an operations leader, because they're less comfortable with budgeting, they're less comfortable with contracts, they're less comfortable with the business side of the house. But ultimately, at a school, that is the driver, right? The economics of a school are the driver of your success. So my suggestion would be to, instead of finding an operations person because you're nervous about budgeting or you're nervous about contracts or whatever the case may be, teach yourself how to do that. Find great mentors, find great supports, and really learn that side well. Meanwhile, hire someone who has the same vision for instruction and curriculum that you do, because you can actually manage that person a lot better than you can manage an operations person as an instructionally focused or instructionally inclined leader, right? It's easier to manage someone in your specialty than it is to manage someone across specialties. The other thing that I would highly recommend, and again, that gets to the heart of it, which is, as the leader of the school, you have to know the business side inside and out. You have to be responsible for it. So that's the first thing. The other thing that I would strongly recommend is to find a way to bring on someone who is an expert at talent and or an expert at student recruitment. And the student recruitment thing I'll leave for a second because it's contextual. It depends on really what location you're in. But on the talent side, when you think about economic drivers, again, like budget drivers at a school, the two things that are going to take up the vast majority of your budget are your facility costs, which is like roughly 15%, right, of your budget. But then personnel costs is 60 to 70% of your budget. And when most people start a charter school, most founders that I know, they're doing the talent hiring process all on their own. And that leaves to chance a huge economic impact, and it leaves not just the economic impact, but it leaves to chance the quality of your product in the classroom. And I don't mean that chance is a strange way to say it. Obviously, as a seasoned educator, folks who are launching charter schools have an eye for instructional talent. But what most founders aren't able to do is to build a really deep pool of candidates that fit their vision. So in the early years, we're selecting from a shallow pool, and that adds a lot of challenge to the mix. So I think a talent person, even before an operations person, leader in the organization, would be a huge value add. The last piece, though, is really contextual. Here in San Antonio, getting students don't just show up in charter schools. They don't just show up in schools of choice. You have to find them. You have to explain, as you suggested before, Drew, what your school is, why parents should be interested in the school, and why they should ultimately send their child to you. One of the biggest I would say one of the best decisions I made early on is to hire a team of full-time student recruiters. So we have a team on the ground who are out talking to families, and this is the same team that's gathering information that helps us build our model for each replication location. But they're really, out there talking to parents, getting the word out about Compass Rose, ensuring that there's a conversation about our school, even when we're small. So we don't put a lot of money into paid advertising. We put a lot of money into on the ground, boots on the ground efforts to turn out families.
I think that's great advice. Paul, I just think that you have been able to put together a model, whether it's an evolution or a revolution, that really speaks to the needs of local communities. And I do hope that you are able to continue to build out that experience for students in a way that builds a community as a whole. And I am just so grateful for your work and what you're doing for the San Antonio community. And I think that you are building the Tesla of education in that market. And I just want to say thanks again for chatting with me for the last 30 minutes.
Well, that's great to hear. Thank you so much for having me, Drew. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for joining Charter Conversations. I'm Drew D'Amico with Building Hope, and I look forward to seeing you next week.